recorder.
Mayor Roland Dykes.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tony Ball.
Here.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Here.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger. Here. Alderman Randy Reagan.
Here.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Here.
City Attorney Terry Hurst.
Here.
City Administrator James Fincham.
Here. Thank you, Tina. In your packet, you've received a copy of the minutes from June 13, 2023 meeting. You've had a chance to look those minutes over. You entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the board to approve the minutes as presented from the regular session of June 13, 2023. It has been properly seconded. Please signify your acceptance by the normal sign of aye.
Aye.
And nays like sign. Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Item 4 is proclamations and a recognition of citizens by the mayor or alderman. Item A is a recognition of our police officers.
Thank you, Mayor. Billy Joe Bob Hudson asked me to help him recognize some officers for a job well done, and I was honored when he asked, and I'm honored to offer these certificates of recognition. Joe Bob's business, Everything Storage, was broken into a couple of months ago, 2 times in a matter of 3 days. And because of the quick professional action of our police department, the suspects were apprehended after the second break-in, and Joe Bob is very thankful to these officers and wanted to offer this recognition. So whenever I call your name, if you will, come up and get a certificate. Josh Spurgeon, Justin Shelton,
Will you take pictures?
and if you will, stay up here and we'll get a picture. Eli Suggs. Alex Reese. BJ Woody. Mike Roby. Matthew Elliott. Will Garver. Scott Lamb. Joe Bob, would you like to come up and be in the photo?
I appreciate it. It's been a problem. First couple of months you're open. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you. Appreciate your reception. Thank you. Thank you. Here she's saying that.
Closer. Squeeze in closer.
Go sideways. Go sideways. Move this way.
We've got the director back here. We've got the director.
We're not used to know which way to go.
Come this way. Come this way. Come on.
Get in together. Turn face. I trust you.
We did, didn't we?
Yeah.
We're trying.
We're big boys. Don't squeeze in and get it.
Not as we can get.
I'm inside his pocket now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderwoman Ottinger. The next item on the agenda is our communications from our city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I'd ask Chief Schultz, excuse me, to make sure that we get a copy of those to HR so we can put one in each of their personnel files. If you would do that, I appreciate it. And we do commend them on a job well done, and we thank Joe Bob for his interest in recognizing them. I know it means a lot to people, anybody, to get a pat on the back and not just somebody griping about what you didn't do, and for a change giving you a compliment or bragging on you a little bit about something you did do. So I know that's much appreciated. And I wish more people would do that. I know they don't owe it to us, but it just really helps morale when folks do that and they realize that what they do makes a difference, because a lot of times you lose track of that. Okay, the first thing I only have a couple of things, and the most important is that in your packet, under the fire department report for this month, you'll find where that we have went from a 4 ISO rating to a 3. And I know Randy understands that more than anybody what that means, but it is an honor. The lower your rating gets, the better prepared it means your department is to respond to situations. And so not only did we go from a 4 to a 3, and as I understand it for the first time, but we also went halfway to a 2, from a 4 to a 2. So maybe down the road in the next few years we might have actually achieved that. We'll see. Jeremy and I talked about what would be required to make that happen, and so we'll see. I think we're on track, but it still might be a while. We've got things in plan that could get us there, but it may be a while before all that takes place. The other thing, and I know we just got through with that, but Constable Spurgeon just came in. If you'd like, I'll stop so you can recognize him.
Josh. Joe Bob Hudson would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation for the job you did in apprehending mechanics in his break-ins. He's very appreciative. Thank you so much.
You gonna get a statement picture?
Oh, yeah, I guess we need to get a picture. Joe Bob, you want to come up here? Come back here.
You getting experience, huh? Yeah, I'm getting it right now.
Get out of the way.
You still ugly either way.
You sit right there, Mr. Mayor. You look good.
I don't know, it makes me look too short, guys.
Charles.
And one thing I'll point out on that, too, is a lot of people forget about the constables, that they're out there, putting in their efforts on behalf of law enforcement in each district. They have to furnish their own vehicles, their own uniforms and guns and everything, and they don't make a salary. They can make a commission on civil processes that they serve and a few other things, but mostly they do it just out because they want to try to help the community, and I think it's good. That's a good example of a constable being involved in helping to make something happen. And I've seen that over my years, that we have constables that do that step up and are a real asset to the community. Okay, the only other thing that I have is this Thursday night will be our 4th summer concert. We will have Outlaw Whiskey Band, where it'll be the first time they've been here, so I don't know what kind of music they play, but I guess it's outlaw whiskey music.
Country, classic rock, and classic country.
So we've had a really good participation so far this year. I know some of y'all have been there, have made it. The weather has cooperated. They are giving a 40% chance of rain this week, and they're calling for heat and humidity. So this may be the first one that comes in a little hairy on us, but so far we've had good weather and good attendance. We've been up in the 300 range about every time in attendance this year, which is back to where we were pre-pandemic. We were getting in the 300 range before the pandemic hit. That dropped us down below 100 for a couple of years, and we slowly worked our way back up to pre-pandemic levels. So I think I get a lot of positive feedback from the public. They really enjoy them, and so I feel really good about them, and I think that the public enjoys them too, and I appreciate the chamber going to all the effort to make it happen. So we partner with them, and we support them every way we can and try to help them make it as nice a venue as we can make it, and as nice an experience as we can make it too. So that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you, James. Our next item on the agenda is appointment of boards, commissions, and committees. Item A is consideration of reappointment to the Beer Board, Jimmy Lee's term.
And he does want to continue to serve if that's y'all's will.
Have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the board then to approve the reappointment of Jimmy Lee to the Beer Board. Has been properly seconded. Please signify your acceptance by aye. Aye. Nays, like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Item B is consideration of appointment to the Beer Board to serve the remainder of L.C. Gregg's term. Did we have someone?
I would like to make a motion to appoint Derek Whitson to that term.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the board then to consideration of appointment to the Beer Board. Mr. Derek Whitson has been properly seconded. Please signify your acceptance by the normal sign of aye. Aye. And nays, like sign. Hearing none, Derek Whitson is appointed.
And just for the record, that'll be to fill out the term of L.C. Gregg, and then
Right.
I think it's like a year and a half maybe or something.
Okay. Item C is consideration of reappointment to the Planning Commission, Mr. Jim McSween.
And he too has expressed a desire to remain involved and on the board. He's an original member. He's been on it for 122 years or something like that.
And Regina has basically talked him out of leaving, so where is she? She got her wish. So anyway, we have, all right, get a motion. Can we have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion. Second.
All right, have a motion to reappoint Mr. Jim McSween to the Planning Commission. It has been properly seconded. Please signify your acceptance by aye. Aye. And nays have like sign. Hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
I think he goes back to like 1967, sure enough,
Yeah.
when the board was formed. He is a founding member of the Planning Commission.
And he's still just as sharp. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, item 7 is reports from committees, members of council, and other officers. Mr. Carver, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else?
We did get the rest of the Tanner building painted to match the gray. We've had a lot of good feedback on that. And I didn't notice today when I went up through there, but the wording on the front of the building should be going up any time for the historic Tanner building. So it'll match the lettering on the Welcome Center.
Okay,
And so that should be going up any time.
that's over the main entrance.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, it's over the front, facing the highway, over the senior entrance.
Okay,
It's the metal letters that I showed you.
yeah,
Yeah.
all right. Any questions? Hearing none. Old business or unfinished business. Item A is consideration of the second reading of ordinance number 2023-11, amending the zoning ordinance, Chapter 3, General Provisions, Section 309, Signs, Prohibited Signs, and Electronic Reader Board.
It's good, man. You took my job.
You don't want to read it in for the
No.
caption?
You just read the caption, so we're good.
Okay. Any questions? All right, we need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the board then to, on second reading of ordinance number 2023-11, amending the zoning ordinance, Chapter 3, General Provisions, Section 309, Signs, Prohibited Signs, and Electronic Reader Board. It has been properly seconded. Please, we need a roll call.
Alderman Mike Hansel,
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger,
Yes.
Alderman Randy Reagan,
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Connie Ball.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. New business. Item A is discussion of the audit for the City of Newport fiscal year 2022. Frank, I think you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. Keep this as brief as possible. You did receive a letter of some required communication. This letter really didn't change much from the prior year. Basically tells that we've audited the financial statements. It includes any communication we're required to give to the governing body in this letter written form. There's not a whole lot of changes in accounting standards that were in effect under the Governmental Accounting Standards Board last year. There was some changes related to leases that didn't have a whole lot of effect on the city. I think at the utilities that did have some leases recorded as long-term obligations that have not been in the past. But other than that, that's probably the biggest change in the accounting standards. As far as on the second page of that letter, corrected and uncorrected misstatements, we accumulated a few adjustments that were not material. Some schedules and adjustments are supplied by Tina in closing when she's reconciling certain accounts on the balance sheet. We make those adjustments that she gave us. Some of those, a few that we made, none were very significant at all. We had no disagreements with management about the application of financial accounting or reporting standards or auditing matters. They did provide us a management representation letter dated the date of the report, May 31st. We're not aware of any second opinions being sought out related to accounting matters. And as far as the other audit findings, of course, you all are aware that we're the group auditor for the primary government, the city. So the report includes the schools and the utilities. and we do audit the schools, but we are furnished the report and an audit report, unmodified audit report on the utilities. They're included in this financial statement, so we place reliance on those auditors. As far as other matters, really there's not too much other information in here. The report itself does include a lot of supplementary information. I've alluded to the fact that most of these schedules pass the no disclosures. Many of those are required by the comptroller here in Tennessee and are included at their request or requirement. So the report is quite lengthy, but it does include both all the funds of the city and the schools and the various departments of the utilities board. And then along with supplementary information and all the accompanying notes. So it makes the report quite long. But as far as the city's report, if you'll turn over to page 4 real quickly, we have our auditor's report. And this report does have a little bit different format than you might have seen in the past. The Audit Standards Committee of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants has issued some new guidance on reporting. There was, they were called the Clarity Standards. There was about 8 of them. One of them revamped the way the report read. And instead of starting out with a lot of introductory information, it starts out with the opinion, because I feel like that is the most important thing to the reader. So basically, in the very first section on page 4 is the opinion statements. And we basically tell that we've audited the various governmental activities and business activities, major funds, aggregate remaining information of the city's financial information as of June 30, 22, and we give our opinion in the second paragraph that this information is fairly presented in all material respects and presents the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, major funds, and the aggregate remaining fund information, cash flows where it's applicable, and budgetary comparisons for the major funds, which in this case are the general fund of the city and the general purpose school fund of the schools, or meet the criteria for major display. And then we give the basis for the opinion, the responsibilities of management, the responsibilities of the auditor. Goes into a little more depth than it has in the past. If you look on page 5, it talks about our objectives, and it gives a list of critical items related to government auditing standards and generally accepted auditing standards here in the U.S. And those are listed as the 5 bullet points that follow the middle of that page. That we exercise professional judgment, maintain skepticism throughout the audit, identify risk of misstatement, obtain an understanding of internal control, which is important in planning our audit. We evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies that are applied and estimates that are made in formulating the financial statements. And then lastly, we have to conclude about the entity's continued operational health. And we have to make assumptions and gather documentation that assures us that over a reasonable period of time that the government will continue to operate. Then finally, in the next section, we give an opinion about required supplementary information. This is data that is required for the management to present a financial report in concurrence with generally accepted accounting standards here in the U.S. for a governmental entity. They have to do a management discussion analysis. That's on page 7 through 21. And then on page 103 through 112, there's some additional information on pension plans that basically are a trend analysis related to the city and the school's participation in the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement Plan. You can find that information on those pages. But we don't audit that information, but We do compare it to the information that's in the report, and we don't find any differences or errors. Then finally, on page 6, we do give a unmodified or in relationship opinion on the supplementary information and follow some footnote disclosures. This would go all the way back through and include a myriad of items, the combining statements for small funds that don't meet the general display for major funds. We also have some information in there related to debt and debt issues, property taxes, and a lot of data in that the normal reader might not want to see, but analysis by debt issuers, bondholders of debt would be more interested in that information along with the comptroller, since they require it. Other information is the introductory and statistical section. We don't audit that. And finally, to let the reader know that we have some other reports we've issued on internal control and compliance, and those are included in this booklet at the back. We'll glance over that in a minute. The management discussion analysis on page 7 through 21 give you a lot of good information. I would suggest you read that. I'm not going to go over it in detail, but it does give the reader a good synopsis of what occurred during the year financially. The government-wide statements start on page 22, and the governmental activities column includes all the funds of the city and the schools. It does include all liabilities and capital assets that are being depreciated and not being depreciated, like land. And you can see on page 22, total assets of all city governmental entities is a little over $51 million. The utilities, all departments are included in the second column, and you can see their assets was a little over $202 million, including all their capital assets, which was north of $160 million. There's some deferred outflows listed here. Those are mainly related to pensions and OPEB for post-employment health insurance for retirees. Those are related to that. And then on page 23, there's liabilities, deferred inflows and outflows, including this particular schedule also includes total long-term debt. And of course, if there's leases, there's some leases on there in the utilities and OPEB liability, pension-related liabilities and assets. Net position of all governmental activities was a little over $37.5 million. Over half of that was tied up in capital assets. Page 24 is the corresponding income statement for that presentation. And I won't do anything but point out the fact that on this basis of accounting, which includes depreciation of capital assets and interest on long-term debt and all revenues and expenditures, you can see the governmental activities had a little over $8 million of expenditures that had to be covered by general revenues. If you look at the fifth column over, about halfway down the page there, you'll see $8,094,000. And general revenues supplied $15 million in that column toward the bottom. And the change in overall net position was a positive $7 million. And that's on an accrual basis of accounting. If you go to the next page, page 25, 26, 27, 28, this is the fund level statements. And these might be of more interest to you, since this is more of the budgetary basis that you adopt on an annual basis. You can see that we got the presentation of the general fund, the general purpose school fund in the first two columns. Then all the non-major funds are combined. Overall, the general fund had $16,700,000 in total assets, $614,000 of liabilities, some deferred income related to property taxes that are attached as liens on January 1st of the year, but really aren't billed until later in the year. $3,008,000, that's on page 26. And finally, overall fund balance is a little over $12 million, almost $12,300,000 on page 26 in the first column at the bottom. General purpose school fund had fund balance of a little over $4 million. And the large majority of all of the fund balances for those funds were unassigned, so they were available for expenditure. There is a reconciliation on the next page that ties the two sets of statements together, government-wide and the fund. I won't go over that, but it basically balances the two fund balances together. And then on page 28, you'll see a statement of income, revenues, and expenditures. And here again, the general fund is in the first column, had about $13.8 million of revenues, had expenditures of almost $11.4 million so revenues exceeded expenditures by $2.4 million, and then you had transfers out, and a lot of that transfers out. It balances there, you can see $611,000 went in support of the school system, and then about $1.7 million went into other funds, including capital outlay funds, which I think most of it went there. But overall, fund balance did grow about $1,776,000 in general fund during the year, which is great. And the schools actually went up $769,000 in their general purpose school fund. So they had an excellent year also. So financially, the city, you can see from the results here, had a really good year in 22. A lot of rebounding from COVID, a lot of your sales tax and other related taxes, shared taxes from the state of Tennessee, they all showed increases over the previous year as kind of the COVID rebound continued in late 21 into 22. So, there's detailed comparisons of the general fund back here, and you can look at those. I think they start on page 34 maybe. You can look at the budget versus actual on most of these revenue and expenditure categories if you like. The notes start a little farther back after the general purpose school fund statements, which also have a budgetary comparison. They start on page 47, and they're quite lengthy, but they do cover most asset-related accounts, how pensions are treated, how debt is shown, what your accounting policies are, and a lot of other data in here. And unfortunately, because we're doing the primary government, we basically have to filter in all the note disclosures that are in the utility board's report, including their debt and their capital assets and leases, and a lot of other data that they have to disclose have to be disclosed in these statements too. So it makes the notes really long. Matter of fact, over almost 69 pages long. So it's approaching over a third of the report, just in financial statement disclosures. The trend analysis on the pensions begin on page 103. You can kind of look at those. That particular requirement started in 2014, and you can see there's 8 years of trend analysis on the TCRS pension plan participation. That will include 2 more years before we ever get a year that rolls off, because these are supposed to be 10-year trend analysis. So, it shows the liability, the contributions, the actuarial changes in the plan, and the ending liability projected, which in the case in 21, because the market had such a good year in 20, going into 21, because these pensions are stated a year behind, you've actually trended into a pension asset versus a pension liability. I expect the next year we're going to go back the opposite way because the market was down. A lot of this is fair market value of the equities dependent, and so it will make it go up and down. The other information follows, and then lastly, you can look at that information at your leisure, but it's in the table of contents. If you see something of interest, you can look back there and find it. Page 136 is the independent audit report on internal control. And then this is an unmodified or clean letter. We did do a single audit this year because the city and the schools received more than $750,000 in federal funds that they expended. So there's a second letter on page 138 on related to an audit of a major federal program. We did audit some COVID relief funds that were required to be audited and some ESSER or emergency relief funds that filtered into the school system. And those were two major programs that had to be audited because of their risk and because of the level of expenditures that were made. And so this is also an unmodified letter, a clean letter with no findings. The summary is on page 141 that tells basically a summary of the audit, that it was an unmodified opinion, there's no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies at the financial statement level. In section D on page 141 tells that there were no material weaknesses that were found in the federal programs or significant deficiencies, and we gave an unmodified opinion on compliance related to the two major programs that are listed in G section. And that pretty much wraps up the report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to attempt to answer for you.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Frank, thank you. It looks like there's no questions, and we appreciate the information. We have got a motion on the board to approve this audit, and I didn't hear a second.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a second too. We need a roll call.
Alderman Mike Hansel,
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger,
Yes.
Alderman Randy Reagan,
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tony Hawk.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion
We
carries.
appreciate it, Mayor. And if you have any questions, our phone number's on the letterhead. Be happy to answer anything. You filter through here and find something you need us to respond to. We appreciate you all and the tone you all set for your financial activities, and appreciate Tina and James and Tina's staff. They do an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Jim. We'll move on to item B, is consideration of the audit contract between Brown, Jake, and McDaniel and the City of Newport.
Yes, Mayor, it would be our recommendation that we renew the contract with Brown, Jake, and McDaniel for the coming year.
Okay. We do have,
I'll make that.
to make the motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the board to renew a contract between Brown, Jake, and McDaniel and the City of Newport. Has been properly seconded. Please signify your acceptance by aye. Aye. And nays have the like sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
One more year, Frank. It helps if there's no findings on this thing. Item C is consideration of resolution number 2023-03, authorizing the City of Newport to participate in the Public Entity Partners, Safety Partners Matching Grant Program.
Mayor, this is one of the two safety grants that we apply for each year through Public Entity Partners. It's just some money that basically that they kind of rebate back to us to help offset some of the costs for safety equipment, for background driver's license checks, and those kinds of things. And of course, we still have to go through the process of approval to fill out the paperwork, but it's a very simple form, and it's just kind of it's just filling out the paperwork. It's not a competitive process or anything. It's a rebate process.
Okay, yeah, I know we've done this
Every year.
so.
Yes, sir.
All right, you've heard the suggestion. What's the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, have a motion on the board to approve the consideration of resolution number 2023-03, authorizing the City of Newport to participate in the Public Entity Partners, Safety Partners Matching Grant Program. Has been properly seconded. I think we will need a roll call.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Randy Reagan.
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Connie Ball.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item D is consideration of the annual contract between 911 office and the City of Newport.
If y'all recall, a year ago, where there was some controversy that kind of got stirred up about the 911 operational administrative setup. And so we held off for a while till that was resolved before we renewed the contract. And we also stipulated that we'd only do it for 1 year to make sure that everything stayed smooth at 911. And now I'm happy to report that everything has went good, and I think that is all behind us now. We've got a new administration at the county, both with the CLB and also in the mayor's office. So this year, we'd like to go back to doing a 3-year contract instead of just having to do it every year, because we're confident. We've had a great working relationship with 911. We're very satisfied with the administration up there, and we feel like that they have the county support now again, and everything will go. We feel like everything's going to go good from here on out. So we recommend going back to and that's how it's worded in this contract. Like I say, we did 1 year for the previous year up until now, but it's our recommendation that we go back to the 3-year contract that we were doing prior to the hiccup.
Okay, you heard the presentation. What's the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve consideration of annual contract between 911 office and the City of Newport for subsequent 3 years. It has been properly seconded. I think we need a roll call on this one too.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Randy Reagan.
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Connie Ball.
Yes.
Motion carries without opposition. Item E, consideration of authorizing the police department to participate in the statewide school resource officer grant program.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman, this grant is a up to $75,000 grant from the governor's school safety initiative, and we're basically at the point we just got to apply for it, and it's a no-match grant, so it will be funds that come into us to fund the school resource officer that is presently in the Newport Grammar School. So it's we just have to have your all's permission to move forward and seek that grant.
And it will save us money, because we're currently putting money, paying, and the grammar school's paying some, and we're paying some. And so with this, the grammar school will save money, and we will save money, because the state money will supplant the funds that we have been putting into it.
Fully funded by the
Yes,
state?
yes, sir.
Great. Okay, you've heard the presentation. Board's pleasure.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Stereo seconds. Okay, we have a motion on the board to approve authorizing the police department to participate in the statewide school resource officer grant program. That's been properly seconded. We need a roll call.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Randy Reagan.
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Connie Ball.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you,
much.
Chief. Item number 10, consideration of bids for a new vehicle for the police department.
Mr. Mayor and Alderman, this is a replacement vehicle. It is not a new, go out and buy an extra car vehicle. A pursuit was begun out in the county one night. It came into the city when the guy got to the state garage and saw that a police car was sitting there in the turning lane. He lost control, went out of, crossed 2 lanes and hit our patrol car in the front end and totaled it. And it was one of those deals that the new model vehicle has to have new equipment in it. So we're going to use funds that have been appointed or appropriated and the insurance money to complete this purchase. And the entire deal now is like $50,380 something.
Did the officer sustain any harm?
He had some minor injuries, but was back to work pretty quickly.
Good. Okay, you've heard the presentation. What's the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to accept that bid. Second.
All right, we have a motion on the board then to consideration of a bid for a new vehicle for the police department in the amount of $50,395.
I think it's 50,003 something, I'm pretty sure.
That's what's on the bid sheet. Okay. Did we get a motion to approve? We did. It's been properly seconded then. Need roll call.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Randy Reagan.
Yes.
Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Connie Ball.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just make y'all aware of how the purchasing process is going lately. We've had a part ordered for a car for multiple months. No Ford dealer in the country apparently can get this one single part, and they are filling orders from last November. So that's how the purchasing through police equipment's going right now. We're sort of hoping to get in front of this and get this thing started, and we have vendors in place, so hopefully when they get the purchase made, we can move forward and not be waiting another year. Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Item B is consideration of bids for the annual salt contract for the city of Newport.
Yes, this is our contract that we have each year for road salt for 2023 and 2024. And I'm asking your all's approval to approve with accomplished material. The amount is $124.58 per ton for this road salt. And it was the cheapest bid that we got back in.
How much you say that was again?
It was $124.58
58, okay.
a ton.
All right. You've heard his presentation. What's the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll take a second.
Okay. All right. We have a motion on the board then for consideration of bids for the annual salt contract for the city of Newport in the amount of $124.58 per ton. It has been properly seconded. We need a roll call.
Alderman Mike Hansel.
Yes.
Alderwoman Luana Ottinger.
Yes.
Alderman Randy Reagan. Yes. Alderman Steve Smith.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Connie Ball.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Item 11 is comments from citizens. Anyone here that wishes to be heard?
Mayor, before we leave, I would if nobody else does, because I feel like I'd have dropped the ball if I didn't. But to say I'm proud of our firefighters, Jeremy, and by going through this myself in 2014, Jeremy's probably worst. My worst fear was that we were an ISO 4, and when we got regraded, my worst fear until I got that letter was would we go backwards. And so I'm sure when Jeremy got the letter that he said he went to a 3, he was very, very pleased, and I am too, with all our firefighters. And not just them, the water system is part of it, the communication system, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So they've done an excellent job.
Done a good job, yeah. So anyone else wishes to be heard? If not, hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.